y'all, it's your girl Annette J. Morris, the owner of Goal Getter LLC. Well, you know it's the vision of Goal Getter LLC to help women identify their God-given gifts and convert their gift into a 5 to 7 figure income generating business that supports their lives and their legacies. Also, I am your host for the Mind TV series, and you know The Mind. Each week we normally bring you all a bomb boss person, whether it's a woman or man, to talk about how their entrepreneurship journey has shifted their lives and moved it in new directions. Well, this week I wanted to come and talk to you all myself. How about that, right? And the reason being is because over the last probably about a year, maybe a little bit less than that, I've been getting new clients, attracting new clients, and a lot of these clients are professionals, right? And that's not to say like nobody's a professional, but when I mean professional, I mean like degreed professionals, right? That are in their particular profession, and somehow they've become prisoners to their profession. So I want to talk, because I know that there are so many more of us out there, and I say us because at one time it was me. So many more of us out there that are degreed and feel like, hey, I went and invested so many years in school, got these degrees, X, Y, Z, or whatever, and feel like I need to stay in this profession because I invested a lot of time in securing a degree for the profession, right? And that is not necessary to do, right? It's not necessary to do, because sometimes when we go to school and we aspire to do a thing, we go into a profession that we learned about, not realizing there are other ways of generating revenue in doing that. When I say that, I'll use, for example, I was just talking to one of my new clients last week. She's a nurse, she's a registered nurse, and she absolutely hates being in the hospital now. She doesn't really want to continue nursing. She just don't know what she want to do or whatever, but she doesn't want to continue nursing. And that's been like the thing with a lot of professionals that have been coming to me. You met my client several weeks ago that was a nuclear pharmacist or whatever. So by trade, she's still a nuclear pharmacist, but she's quit the field because she's exhausted with it, right? And so that has happened with a lot of people. But back to the conversation with the RN, she wants to get out of the hospital. She's tired of it. She's exhausted with it. She doesn't want to do nursing at all anymore, right? And so I said, well, let's get to the root of who you really are to find out what you're truly passionate about, what you want to do, so that I can help you in that area. And in the grand scheme of things, in most instances, when people go into helping professions, they go into helping professions because they want to help people, right? And so when you think of wanting to help people, and that's her thing, like, I just really love to help people, right? And I was like, well, how else can you help people but also make the revenue that you want to make, right? Because nursing paid her pretty well. She's just exhausted with doing it, right? So my thing is, you can make income and impact. You don't have to sacrifice and do one or the other, right? With my field as a therapist, I've shared with you all before, 2 college degrees, and I was in a supervisory position, my very last job, which was almost 12 years ago, and I was only making $40,000 a year, right? So when you balance that out or whatever, that's really not making much at all per month, right? And it definitely did not align with the dream life that I had, right? Because again, wanted my children to be educated in private schools, wanted to be able to take them on vacations, and literally the revenue that I was generating with my salary, I was barely able to make ends meet and do all the things that I had to do, let alone some of the things that I wanted to do, right? And so that required me to make a decision. Am I going to continue to be a prisoner to my profession and just stay here because I invested so many years in getting these degrees and all these other things? Or am I going to find a way to make an impact and make the income so that I am helping people and also helping myself and my family, right? So I made a conscious decision to choose another route. My thing was, I like to work with the human mind, right? Because I know everything starts with the mind. That's pretty much why this is the name of this TV series, right? Everything starts with the mind. The Bible says, so a man thinks, so is he, right? So everything, from my perspective, biblical perspective, it all starts with the mind, right? So I also know that in order to be mentally well, right, we have to be able to make better decisions in order to see, like, whatever success we want in our lives, right? It all starts with the way that you think. So from the thought goes the behavior, and you start acting on different things, and then after that you see the manifestation of it, right? But it all starts with a thought. Even self-defeating behaviors, right? That starts with a thought. Oh, I can't do it, X, Y, Z. So the mind is like, oh, well, we can't do it. It won't do it. Nothing will manifest. You won't get nothing, because nothing from nothing needs nothing, right? You're thinking nothing. You're not doing nothing. You end up with nothing, right? Same with success. You want success, you think successful thoughts, you take the necessary action, you see success manifest. Now, it's not that easy, right? But success is like you have the thought, you take some action, you might fail, you get back up. So it's not a straight path to success. But however, it does start with a thought, and with consistency, you will see the level of success that you absolutely want, right? So I want to talk to individuals that are degreed and are feeling like they're prisoners to their particular profession. There is an escape route. I just want you to know there is absolutely an escape route if you are exhausted with the profession that you chose, right? You don't necessarily, if you're a nurse, you don't necessarily have to stay in the hospital. If you are a therapist, you do not necessarily have to stay behind the couch or whatever, right? And working with people with mental illness. So I'll tell you my journey. And then again, you can kind of figure out how this applies to you if you are exhausted with your profession, right? So as a therapist, working with the human mind and enjoying working with the human mind, I found it to be an easy transition to go from being a therapist to a certified life coach and mindset coach, right? Because you're still working with people's thoughts, their thought patterns, the thing, and manifesting the things that they want in life, right? And it's better for me because I prefer to work on people, helping them to be mentally well, as opposed to continuing to focus on mental illness, right? So in the mental health profession, as a mental health therapist, like, we're always talking about the person's mental illness, their diagnosis, whatever it is, and then, changing the behaviors that they exhibit as a result of the mental illness. I don't want to talk about the mental illness all the time, right? Because there are mental wellness components even to anybody that has a mental illness. And technically, to be perfectly honest, if you read the DSM long enough, no matter which revision or version that you read, you're probably gonna find yourself in it, right? So we all could be diagnosed with something. That's the reality of it, right? But let's talk about the mental wellness of a person, right? And help them to live productive, normal, quote unquote, normal lives, or as normal as possible, right? And we all are capable of living somewhat of a normal life, or whatever life that we, desire to live, right? So as a therapist, it was the easy transition to go from being a therapist into a certified life coach and mindset coach, right? Because now I'm helping the people to transform their thoughts, which is transforming their lives, right? Ultimately. But even still, like, you have to get an understanding of what you want to provide and who you want to provide it to. So in mental health, we provide services to those that are diagnosed with a mental illness. On the coaching side, it's a little bit different, right? Because you can provide coach services to everybody if you want to, but the reality is, in business, you have to have a target audience, right? And so I had to start thinking like a business owner and not just like a therapist, right? So in college, undergrad and grad, they don't teach you how to be a business owner unless you're going to school for business, right? But in counseling, social work, nursing, none of that are they teaching us how to be good business owners or CEOs. They merely teach you how to be a good nurse. A good medical school teaches you how to be a good doctor. Master's program teaches you how to be a good social worker, a good therapist, but not a good business owner, right? So I had to figure out along the way, how do I start a thriving and successful business, right? And then figure out how to maintain the business, right? So all of these things were pretty much self-taught by trial and error and by the grace of God, really, right, realistically. But with that particular business, I started off doing consulting work. When I transitioned from being a therapist, I started off with doing consulting work for behavioral health agencies, right? So I started providing services. And again, you just have to figure out what services you want to provide and to who the target audience is that you want to provide it to, and then pricing it, right? It's just that simple. So if you're desiring to transition from a profession into entrepreneurship or to doing your own thing and not doing the same thing that you've been doing because it aligns with your degree or whatever it is, figure out who the target audience that you want to service and how do you want to service them, right? So initially you can think in terms of services. What services can I provide as a nurse? What services can I provide as a therapist but not as therapy, right? What services can I provide as a nurse but not in the hospital doing nursing, typical nursing type things or whatever, right? So what other services can you provide? I provided consulting services for behavioral health agencies, making sure they were in compliance to maintain their state licensure, and then also making sure that they maintain their accreditation, right? At the time, I had a nonprofit organization, so then I was able to start working with individuals that wanted to start nonprofits, right? So those were the two services that I started with. I had done that. So from like, I started that particular business officially in April of 2012, right? But before I started it officially, I was doing the work, which is what prompted me to start it as a business. That year, I made thousands of dollars right off the bat. It was way more than I had ever made as a therapist just doing the consulting work, right? But I ran into a hiccup at about the last quarter of the year, right? So business got really, really slow the last quarter of the year. I found it really weird. I'm like, what's going on? You know, because I've been rolling up until like mid-October or whatever, right? And then the business just was like, it just fell off or whatever, right? So I'm like, oh, that was weird. You know, this XYZ or whatever, but okay, this is my first year, blah, blah, blah. The second year, the same trend happened, right? So from like January on up to October, rolling, we getting clients, all these things, making money, get money like that, right? And then business fell off again, right? So it was at that point I realized, oh, people are not really focused on services and starting businesses and making sure they're compliant and looking for consultants, all of these other things or whatever, right? I have to find products that align with my target audience, right? Because, you know, that's the holiday season. People looking for stuff to wrap and gift to people and all these other things or whatever. So we started adding planners. Y'all see these goodies I have on this couch right here, right? We started creating planners about 6 or 7 years ago, right? So this was our planner from last year. We create a new planner every year, right? And then we do a little tweak to the inside, you know, whatever it is, just so that it won't look the same or look just like all we did was change the cover, right? We make a few little tweaks. So like this year we have a 90-day planner, just helping you to plan in smaller increments to make the goals more attainable, right? So we added planners to our services, right? So now we have services and products, right? We started publishing books. So these are 2 of my latest books from last year or whatever, right? So I co-authored these projects or whatever, right? But I also have books that I've published on my own with my, you know, myself or whatever. So I am a published author. I have 3 Amazon best-selling books and then 1 international bestseller. So actually this book, along with several other ladies, was an international bestseller for last year, right? So if you're thinking about products that you want to add to your services, right? Again, this is another stream of income because I talk about multiple streams of income for long-term sustainability for any business, right? So if you're considering transitioning from a profession to entrepreneurship, these are some of the things that you want to consider, right? You may start off with a service, but you also want to consider adding products to it, right? Then we added, because as a therapist, we always encourage people to write and to journal, all of those type things or whatever, right? To get your emotions out. And still, even if you are not diagnosed with a mental health disorder, it's still good to empty your brain, right? To do a dump, to journal, to write out your emotions, because we all have like days that are pretty rough or whatever, right? And sometimes we just don't feel like talking to people, right? So journaling is one of the best ways to do that. So we have created journals, right? We've created adult coloring books. We even have candle lines that go along with the journals, right? So like this is a manifestation journal that goes with this manifestation candle, right? So when we're talking in terms of products, you want to figure out like what aligns with your target audience. What are you trying, because my thing is encouraging people to be mentally well, right? I work with entrepreneurs, helping them to not only generate revenue in their business, but to maintain their mental well-being, right? So that they can continue to make money in the business and enjoy the fruit of their labor, right? So I often talk about self-care routines and help my clients to implement different self-care routines that they can do on a consistent basis so that they're mentally well balanced, not even just in alignment with their target audience, in alignment with themselves, mind, body, and soul, right? So I encourage that on a consistent basis. So these are products that we do and create to encourage self-care, to encourage being mentally well, all of these things while we're making money, right? Because it's just not logical to make money, chase the bag, do all of these things, and then lose your mind. Like, cause there's no benefit to that, right? So once you get to the point where you have a nervous breakdown, you experience burnout, all of these other things, now your main focus has to be to nurse yourself back to health. You can't even focus on the business, making money, leaving a legacy, and all of these other things that you want to do, right? So you have services that you can transition into to provide gain revenue, right, and provide the same or similar services that you would in your profession or whatever, right? And then you have products that can align with those particular services that will allow you to transition from your current profession that's making you miserable, if that is the case, right, into full-time entrepreneurship. Another avenue is, and I talked about it, being an author, right? So a lot of people don't think in terms of a published book and how that can get you notoriety and all of these other things or whatever, right? But write a story. That your story is gonna align with some target audience and is used to save somebody, no matter what it is, right? So my very first book was called Conquering the Enemy, and I released that in 2012, right? Enemy was spelled E-N-E-M-E, and it talks about overcoming the enemy of self, right? How we are bogged down in our minds. We have self-defeating behaviors as a result of X, Y, Z or whatever, right? So it's talking about like transitioning the mind and overcoming the enemy of self, right? That's a spinoff from what I already do, right? Helping people to transform their thoughts so they can transform their life. That's what a book spun off from. So being able to write a story that connects with your target audience, right, and that can help somebody is another thing that I strongly encourage you. And I feel like everybody has a story, right? So why not publish it? Why not put it in a book, right? And get it out there, because there is a target audience that aligns with your story, right? A lot of people will write a story about how they overcame certain things or whatever, right? I have a book that I did as a co-author project a couple of years ago that talks about favor in failure, right? So we're talking about instances where we failed, but how those particular failures literally did us a favor, right? Because sometimes it causes us to pivot, sometimes it causes us to pray more, sometimes failure causes us to realize what we shouldn't do so that we can figure out what it is that we should do, right? So I've had a lot of failures in business, right? In this 12-year journey, I've encountered a lot of failures, and I feel like the failures that I've encountered were pitfalls so that I can save my clients, right? So now I get a lot of clients and attract a lot of clients that are on the same journey as me, and I get to say, are on the same journey as I was on, and I get to look back and be like, I tried this didn't work, I'm not going to encourage you to do this. How would you consider, like, would you consider doing XYZ like this? Now, if they're adamant about going down there and knowing that I done told them, like, that's a pitfall, that's a brick wall, I don't encourage it, then I'm not about to fight you not to. But I don't encourage them to do it, and I can share with them an experience like, I failed doing this XYZ or whatever, so no, we're gonna try it this way, right? This way has been a successful manner, XYZ, whatever it is, right? So I feel like I've encountered enough failures to help them, to save them from doing it, right? So that's a coach's responsibility, to save your client time to get to their level of success, because you have not written the blueprint as a coach, you've lived the blueprint, right? So you're able to give that and pass that on to your clients to help them to get to their level of success a lot quicker than you did, right? Another option in a way to leverage a book project is to be a speaker. So it doesn't matter what your profession is. If you've had a certain level of expertise, a certain level of knowledge, a certain level of skills, that's a platform for you to speak on, right? So there are several conferences that are wrapped around like medical conferences. There are like LCA conference, ACA conference, which is American Counseling Association, Louisiana Counseling Association. So there's all kind of like therapists, psychologists, counseling conferences. There are conferences for medical professionals. So whatever field you're in, there's more than likely some type of professional conference that aligns with that, right? But you're not only bound to speak at conferences, right? Whatever your subject matter is, there is a target audience for that, right? So like in a couple of weeks, I'll be speaking to a group of female entrepreneurs about mindset, right? This is not the therapeutic community, this is female entrepreneurs, right? I have another speaking engagement in June, speaking on what? Mindset. Last year, I had a speaking engagement in Tulum. That was my first year being an international speaker, right? So I had a speaking engagement in Tulum and a speaking engagement in Playa del Carmen, right? Playa del Carmen. All of those were on mindset, right? Getting entrepreneurs to think different, so again, they can see different in their life. Once I can get you to start thinking different and more positive, you'll start taking the necessary action steps to manifest whatever it is that you want in life, right? But being a speaker is one of the most lucrative streams of income like you can ever think of, right? And most people don't realize how much speakers actually make, right? I'll use, for example, last week, one of my clients called me. She was presented with this opportunity to come and present in Nigeria, I think. And she was like, it would be such a pleasure. Like, I could just do it for free. And I was like, no, no, no. We don't do anything for free. You have a business. I was like, and you have to take in consideration, like, you're going to be over there 3 days or whatever. I said, but in all actuality, people don't value what they don't pay for. If they're calling you, they're looking to pay you, right? The least amount most speakers will ask for, or presenters will ask for, is $5,000. You can make $5,000 per speaking engagement, right? There are people that make way more, right? So your boy E.T., Eric Thomas, y'all know Eric Thomas. Eric Thomas has said from the stage that he makes $60,000 per speaking engagement. Not 16, not 16, 60,000 per speaking engagement, right? If he has 10 speaking engagements a year, that is $600,000, which means 10 speaking engagements. If he speaks for 1 hour per speaking engagement, he done spent 10 hours a year and made $600,000. That speaking is one of the most lucrative professions that you can ever get into, and I strongly encourage looking into being a speaker and adding that to your platform. You can leverage any book project, and because once you publish a book, that makes you the expert on that particular subject matter, whatever the book is on, right? So leverage that book into speaking engagements. You can leverage that book into all type of things, right? So I'll use, for example, one of my books from about 2 years ago was six-figure teaching female entrepreneurs how to leverage their businesses and create six figures from it, right? From that particular book, the book was acknowledged in Yahoo News and on another couple of platforms, right? So from that particular book project, I got several speaking engagements. I was also able to start a group coaching program teaching a group of female entrepreneurs that were 5-figure earners how to move their business into 6 figures, right? And then got interviewed on a bunch of podcasts as a result of one book project. So when I say the book project makes you an expert on whatever that subject matter is, you can utilize that to create your speaking engagements from, right? Again, my client from last week, when she contacted me, she was like, I will do this for free for exposure. I was like, no, 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 we don't do anything free or anything for exposure, right? You've been exposed long enough. That's why the people have contacted you, because you're fully exposed. Let's get over that point, right? And so I asked her, I was like, how much would you be comfortable asking for? She was like, $1,500. I was like, no, ma'am. I said, I tell you what, ask them for $6,000. I said, because $5,000 will probably be good for you. If you selling for $1,500, $5,000 is really like the lowest point that people ask for speaking engagements or whatever, right? So she said, okay, it was scary for her or whatever. She was like, but I'm gonna do it or whatever. And I say, in that way, if they want to negotiate or whatever, don't let them negotiate past the 5,000 point or whatever, right? The very next, she sent them the $6,000. The very next day, they sent her a response accepting that, gonna pay her the full $6,000, not $5,000, but the full $6,000, in addition to a first-class flight for her. They're paying for all her room, board, lodging, all the things, and paying her $6,000 to come out there and be a presenter, right? So again, if you are ready to get out of your profession, there are several ways that you can do it, right? And don't think in terms of, a lot of people think in terms of, oh, I have to replace my salary. No, you don't have to replace your salary. You just have to make sure your business is making enough to cover your bills and your overhead. And I always tell my clients, get a little lagniappe in there. Have an extra. Everybody not from New Orleans, y'all don't know what lagniappe means. Lagniappe is extra, right? Have at least another $1,000 overage, so that if anything happens that particular month or whatever, then you have a little money that's over that amount, and then there's some money still left in your business, so that you're not draining the business, right? So once you get out of full-time employment into full-time entrepreneurship, you can dedicate more time to the business and continue to get it to build and grow and make even more money, right? But just make sure when you transition that your business is making enough to cover your bills, whatever that is, right? So then you just have to do a calculation to say, okay, my mortgage is this amount, my car note is this amount, car insurance, whatever it is, right? Okay, my bills are about $6,000 a month. I need to provide these many services to make at least $7,000 a month to cover that, and then I can transition into full-time entrepreneurship, dedicate my full-time to it, and then I can blow the business up to $10,000 months, $15,000 months, $20K months, all of those things or whatever, right? So just staying focused on it, making sure if you are ready, if you are exhausted in your profession and ready to make the transition and stop being a prisoner to your profession, you don't have to be that dedicated to your degree. Like, you earned it. Nobody's taking it away from you. Kudos to you, girl. I'm giving you a high five right now, but you don't have to be a prisoner to that particular degree. There are other things that you can do and leverage those letters behind your name, leverage those skills, leverage the knowledge and all the things that you have and make as much money as you want to make, right? So consider what type of services you can provide, what type of products that would align with your target audience, right? And make sure whatever services you provide, align it with a target audience, and make sure these are the services that are needed by that particular target audience, right? So the services, what type of products can you add to it that also aligns with that target audience, that is a need of that target audience, or something that they consistently use and would benefit from. Publishing a book, right? So putting your story in a book, whatever that may be. Even if you want to do it as a co-author project and publish it along with some other ladies, men, whatever it is, that share a testimony with you or whatever, right? Speaking, definitely consider speaking. I know a lot of us are like, oh, I'm afraid to be on a stage in front of people, XYZ. But when you can make $100,000 from a speaking engagement, I'm sure that will help you overcome that fear. So I hope this has helped you all somewhat today, because again, this same transition is the same transition that I took. I didn't have an exit strategy or anything when I left for full-time entrepreneurship. I just heard the voice of God and left. And these are a lot of the things that I have implemented into my business along the way to help my business have multiple streams of income so that we are sustaining long term. Because again, this is a 12-year business. We've been in it for a while. We have surpassed, like the statistics say, most businesses don't last past the first year or the first 3 years, whatever it is. We're here for 12 years. We're going to be around some more, but continue to think of ways that you can leverage your profession so that you are making the revenue that you need to not only make a difference in your life, but also leaving a legacy for your kids, impacting other lives, making the income you want while making an impact, all right? So hopefully this has helped you all some. Next week, we're going to be back. I promise y'all we're going to bring y'all a Bomb Entrepreneur next week. I just really felt like you all needed to hear this week. And hopefully you all are implementing it in your life. If you need help making that transition from your current career to full-time entrepreneurship, starting a business, identifying streams of revenue in the business so that you can have longevity in the business, by all means, give us a call at Goal Getter LLC. The office number is 504-513-3076. Again, 504-513-3076. And let us know that you heard us on the Mind TV series so I know exactly where you're calling from. So until the next week, same time, same place, we hope to see your face in a place. Y'all have a good one. Bye, y'all. Welcome to Go Getter University. It's the home and a one-stop for entrepreneurs, teaching all things entrepreneurship. We have courses ranging from how to start a business, how to start a nonprofit organization, to how to generate your first 10K consistent months, on to grant writing. Anything that you want to learn about entrepreneurship, it is in Go Getter University. Follow us at www.goalgetteruniversity.com to register.